Welcome to the first lecture series in this Begin internship program. We are privileged and honored to have Ms. Rashmi Singh with us today. Ma'am has received her education at Sacred Heart Convent School in Jamshedpur and then in St. Mary's Convent School in Kanpur, and then she did her graduation from Loreto School in Kolkata. She is a PhD holder from Jawaharlal Nehru University with specialization in Russia. Ma'am is the founder of two leading magazines, Telecom Life and Infra Life, and she is currently the chairperson of World Organization of Students and Youth. It is a privilege and honor to have ma'am today with us, and we look forward for her insightful words. Thank you.
Okay, a very warm welcome to all of you for this talk. So this is a very technical issue. Young students, and most of you, I am told, all of you are from the law background. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's a very technical issue, but I'll try to keep it simple. But you have to be very attentive because a whole lot of layers are involved. So attention to detail is the key, and as law students, you know, attention to detail is very important. So we are going to talk about e-commerce in India. Recently, I wrote a book on e-commerce, which of course I'll talk to you later about. It is on taxation, avoidance and violations, which has been happening in this space quite rapidly. And if you peruse the newspapers also, for over the past few months, e-commerce has been talked about in the light of violations, a lot of violations which have been happening in the space and what has been happening to the Indian industry. But before we go on to that, I would like to understand from some of you, the minute I say e-commerce, what are the 2 or 3 top things which come to your mind?
Flipkart, Amazon, eBay, Snapdeal, PayPal, Paytm.
Okay. Can you just move? So, first slide. So, as you all said about Flipkart, I named the companies, Amazon. So, Flipkart, e-commerce in India is primarily about these 4 companies. Flipkart, Amazon, Paytm and Snapdeal. Not so much Snapdeal now because Snapdeal is going through a very rough phase. All these 4 companies, they have certain common features. Basically, none of them are owned by Indian promoters. They're Indian promoters wherever they are, like in Snapdeal or Flipkart, they're minority stakeholders. They're majority owned by foreign investors. And the thing which two important domain areas which my study establishes, which I did a lot of study on through data searches, through RC data evaluation, and a whole lot of other on-ground field site reports, is that all these 4 companies have these signature styles. All of them are engaged in rampant violations of FDI rules, and secondly, they have tax avoidance structures. So these are the 2-3 things to remember about all these 4 companies. Amazon, and that's why the legal aspect is so very important, that all of them are in violation of FDI rules and they have tax avoidance structures. How do they go about doing these 2 things? We will just come to that in the subsequent slides. Could you go to the next slide, please? So the methodology of choice, what they do is they have certain methodology, all of them, and this I'll establish in the subsequent slides. I've written about it in great detail in my book. You can read it also if you are interested. So they do it through creation of fronts, name lenders. They have name lenders. Those companies are basically owned by these companies, and the people who front those companies are basically giving their names. So that is known as name lenders. So they become name lenders. So they create fronts. They have name lenders, and they have a network of what is known as controlled sellers. I'll define what is a controlled seller in the latest slide. FDI violations by these companies are comprehensive. They are both in the marketplace and inventory. Now these are the 2 terms in the context of e-commerce you will hear again and again. marketplace and inventory. So and these are the two terms around which the legal structures are created by the government. So you have to be very, very familiar. These are the key phrases, so to speak, key words. So you have to be very familiar with these two words, inventory and marketplace. Next. So world over, as you know, e-commerce happens in 4 formats: business to business, B2B, B2C, business to customer, C2C, which is customer to customer, and C2B, customer to business. And in India, we have 3 business models of e-commerce, which is inventory. Can anyone tell me what is an inventory?
A warehouse.
Warehouse, exactly. Marketplace, as you understand, is a marketplace. A physical equivalent of that would be a mall. An online marketplace in the online world, the physical equivalent of that would be a mall where you have small sellers, shopkeepers selling their stuff. And you have the hybrid model, which is a combination of the marketplace and the inventory. Now in India, as per rules, only the marketplace model of e-commerce is allowed. But in practice, what we see is basically all e-commerce companies are inventory operations, and all e-com companies are inventory operations, and this is affected through this network of control sellers. So the typical description is that you can classify them as hybrid marketplaces. So something which is disallowed is what they are engaged in. They are not pure play marketplaces, they are hybrids, they are inventory based operations which is operationalized through a network of control sellers / marketplaces. So the agency, the government agency which formulates policy on this matter, on this domain, is the DIPP, Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion. It comes under the Commerce Ministry. And now let us get into a bit of a background on e-commerce and FDI. So 100% FDI was permitted under automatic route for B2B. But when this was permitted, what happened was a lot of violations was happening as far as B2C was concerned. So many companies, they started selling in violation. Next slide, please. So when these violations, they started offering heavy discounts. So it was supposed to be an marketplace for B2B, on B2B e-commerce online activity, e-commerce activity. But what they started doing was they started selling to customers. So they converted it to B2C. So that was the violation. And they started offering heavy discounts to the customers. So the traditional retail industry was up in arms, and this organization, association, industry association, All India Footwear Manufacturers and Retail Association, they took these 6 e-commerce companies to court. So the legal case ensued. So when this legal case ensued, the Delhi High Court, this was in November 15, 2015. So when this case was going on, the Delhi High Court issued a directive to the government that you begin investigating 21 e-commerce sites, and those sites were listed by the court. So government submitted to the court that they had already begun investigating 6 e-com sites. However, when this case was pending before the court, certain relaxations were brought by the government in FDI norms for B2C trade. So in pursuance of that, the government came out with the policy. And the policy, that is the government parlance, that is the administrative format. It was known as Press Note 3 2016, because this policy was formulated in 2016. So Press Note 3 2016, elaborating the FDI policy, these were basically the guidelines for FDI policy in the e-com sector for governing B2C, was announced by the government. And because of this new development, the association which was before the court, it withdrew its case. Next slide, please. And again, to give impact to this policy, the RBI made the attendant changes in the FEMA Act. Because it was again related to FDI, so Foreign Exchange Management Act, there were certain changes which were brought about by RBI in 2017. So once the case was withdrawn, because the association, because the Indian retail industry felt, and it was that press note 3 was based on a very sound rationale, and quite legitimately so, because it took care of all the stakeholders. So though it allowed, so what did it do to safeguard different stakeholder interests? Because march of technology is unstoppable, everyone recognizes that, even the traditional retail industry recognizes that you cannot be a Luddite and oppose the march of technology. It is not happening. It is it is a market behavior, a business model which is there to stay. So they acquiesced in this policy and they withdrew the case because there were safeguards. The safeguards were that even though 100% FDI and automatic route was permitted in the B2C model, there was a significant protection given. The protection was that on a marketplace, no seller could sell more than account for 25% of the sales volume. So supposing Amazon, the marketplace Amazon or Flipkart, for example. So there's a seller. No seller could sell, of the total sales volume of Amazon, one seller could account for more than 25%. So other sellers also have a pie of the market. So 75% is open for small sellers also. That's what the retail industry thought. You know that here is a marketplace. We can reach to different geographies because there is sufficient protection. The big guys will not be able to corner the market, and we'll have sufficient place to sell our wares. So they agreed. But what happened is, that's what the second point said, the sales volume from a single vendor or group of companies of the marketplace, like Amazon also had their own companies, that could not exceed 25% of the gross sales. No one seller could corner the marketplace. 25% was the rider, put in. So if their gross seller is 1,000, if the gross sales is 1,000 crore, 25% of 1,000 crore is the cap. Supposing some marketplace is doing business worth 1,000 crore, X seller can have only 25% of that market, of that 1,000 crore pie. He cannot have 50%, or he cannot have 40%. That was the law. That is the law. Even today, that is the policy. 25% cannot, more than 25% is the cap. That is absolutely sacrosanct. So FDI, they disallowed FDI in inventory-based e-commerce. Inventory-based e-commerce, FDI is not allowed. Because warehouses, ordinary retailers, ordinary shopkeepers cannot compete with warehouses. If the warehouse, inventory-based e-commerce model basically means those who run inventory of goods and services, they can sell directly to the consumers. A small retailer, shopkeeper, cannot compete with a warehouse in terms of pockets, in terms of availability of goods, in terms of discounts that it can give. So it's not a level playing field. So inventory-based e-commerce was completely overruled, not allowed, disallowed. So and the third thing was e-commerce related entities like these companies, they could not influence price through discounts and other mechanisms, cashbacks. You have all these things, we'll go into it shortly. And in the market, and there were other stipulations which were made, which is any warranty, any seller selling his product on the marketplace like Amazon and Flipkart or Snapdeal, the seller is responsible for the warranty of goods or any damages, liquidation damages and stuff like this, which is to be paid to the consumer. If in transit the goods get damaged, then the liability of that is with the seller, it is not with the marketplace. So all these stipulations were made. So this Press Note 3 2016 was supposed to be a good balancer. So it would balance the needs of the industry, consumer behavior and aspirations, and the interest of the traditional sector. So everyone would have a fair share in the marketplace. But what happened? Next. So now let us see what is the real situation. This was the very pure motive of the policy, which provided for a fair share for everyone. But what really happened? Now, large marketplaces like Amazon, Flipkart and Paytm, they basically, like I told you, they are running inventory-based operations, and they are running it through a network of what I have called in my book a network of controlled sellers. So originally, now we have to understand that who are the entities, which are the entities whom I am calling controlled sellers. Because really there's no other word to describe it in this so realistically. So before the policy, FDI policy for B2C, which is Press Note 3 2016 came into force on Amazon, you had these big sellers. They were big owned sellers of these marketplace companies. So for Amazon you had Cloudtail, and for Flipkart you had this company called WS Retail Private Limited. So they were the big owned sellers, and the relationship of these companies, these big sellers with the marketplace companies will be explained. I'll explain that in the latest slide. But what happened is, when 25% cap came in, these big sellers, they knew that they would not be able to corner the market. So they divided that market share. They created a number of smaller sellers. So effectively what one company was doing, that was divided into say 5 companies. So this is a network of control sellers. So ultimately the beneficent control is with one company. But instead of one company selling it on the marketplace, you have 5 companies. So that is how they circumvented the law. So this, just go back. So this is what they did. And what is a typical circumventing operation? I'll explain in the next slide. Now we look at Cloudtail. Cloudtail is a typical archetype. I call it the archetype, a violation format. It is an inventory based operation. What it does is basically it buys in bulk from the wholesale, and then it sells it, and then this material it gives it to this products, it gives it to its network of controlled sellers. Cloudtail in itself, the ownership is also very turgid, and it is a matter of investigation, because Cloudtail inventory is disallowed. Inventory business, I told you already, FDI is disallowed. So what they did is Amazon created an intermediary structure. So Cloudtail is 100% owned by a company called Prayon Business Services Private Limited. Prayon is an intermediate structure. Prayon in turn, can you just go to the next slide, then I can. Yeah, so you see this Amazon group, and you see Cloudtail over here. Cloudtail is owned by Prayon Business Service Private Limited. This is a violation in terms of shareholding. So there are violations at different layers. There is a violation of how the companies operate, in shareholding, breach of the FDI norms itself. So Cloudtail is owned by Prayon Business Services Limited. Prayon Business Services is majority owned by a company called Catamaran, 51% owned by Catamaran Advisors Private Limited, and 49% by the Amazon Group. Catamaran Services Limited, Advisors Services Limited, is owned by Narayan Murthy and some of his relatives on behalf of a trust called Haber Mallow Trust, and the beneficiaries of that trust are unknown. Like you know, as law students you know, a trust is what is a trust? Trust is a succession instrument. You are not bound to disclose who are the beneficiaries unless there is a contest in a legal case. So we don't know. So it is not transparently known. So this majority ownership is not transparently known. Now why Amazon, can you go to the previous slide please? Why Amazon created this intermediary structure? Because the law says clearly that in the intermediate structure, if the beneficent holder of the majority stake is an Indian or an Indian company, that is permissible. So again, this is a matter of investigation, because Narayan Murthy gets no benefit out of owning this company, Prayon, because Cloudtail is in losses. On the last declared results of Cloudtail 2016-17, and it has been the behavior consistently so, on a revenue of 5,689 crores, it had a loss of 26.67 crores, and it paid no taxes. In fact, that is the distinctive Amazon business practices, not just in India, but world over. I'll talk about that later. That its business policy is one simple line: pay no tax to the government. So book your expenses, show your expenses as losses on the book of records through a complex maze of companies. But report limited pre-tax profit and pay no tax. That is its business policy. So we'll come to that later. So this is how the operation at the level of the company where it is disallowed, is typically disallowed, is breached, and market behavior, how the breaches are done of 25% cap that I have already explained to you in terms of control sellers. Could you just go to the next slide? Yeah, next. So this is in terms of the FDI violation, rules violation. This is in terms of the price distortion violation. How do they do the price distortion? So they have these multiple entities through which they do the following. They influence the price in the following ways. Direct price discounts, you are all familiar with that. Marketing expense. So marketing expenses are carried. If there is a small seller, in the traditional retailer will have to incur the marketing expenses on his own to sell his product. Marketing expenses, logistic expenses. So that is the disadvantages. Those are again the factors which destroy the level playing field. So all these, and logistics, wallet cashbacks, financing costs. So these are the methods through which they distort the prices with the other players. So both Flipkart and Amazon, they involve a lot of entities and a lot of intermediaries to influence price and distort price. If you go to the next slide, I'll show you through a diagram. So what happens is typically this. So Amazon Wholesale India Private Limited, Amazon has around 19 entities in India. Amazon Wholesale India Private Limited, it buys in bulk and then it gives it, I will not say sell because they are all Amazon controlled companies. This is a network of controlled sellers. So they have these controlled sellers, Rocket Commerce, Green Mobile and others. So Amazon Wholesale India Private Limited gives it to these controlled sellers. And then they sell it on Amazon Seller Services Private Limited. So all the costs related to marketing, logistics is done by Amazon Seller Services Limited, logistics also. So these subsidies are built in. None of these sellers are incurring costs on logistics, marketing, nothing, none of the expenses. It is done by the platform, which is Amazon Seller Services itself. And then you have, and of course Cloudtail I have explained to you how it functions. So this is a structure which price distortion is done. So supposing a packet of, transmitting a packet from one place to another would cost 200 rupees. Amazon Seller Services would book the expenses for 200 rupees as a loss and charge the customer only 100 rupees. So 100 rupees is booking as a loss. So that is the way they absorb these losses. They say, but it is basically an expense. So what they do is they present the expenses as losses. And since they have these complex maze of companies, ultimately what comes out is that they are booking a loss. But if you see it, those are expenses. Those are not actually losses. Because you have to, logistics company has to incur expenses. So since they are all owned by the one group company, they are dividing the losses and the discounts across say 7-8 companies. And overall they are booking a loss. So that is the methodology. Show expenses as loss, book your expenses as loss, show an overall loss, either show a loss or a pre-profit, very small pre-profit tax, so that you pay nil to no tax. So nil to no tax is their tax avoidance structure. It's very important as law students to understand this structure. So can you just go on to the next? Similarly, this is what Flipkart does. Now, all these companies you are saying, Flipkart India Limited is the main company, and the other companies you are seeing, Sreyash, Retail Private, all these are the network of control sellers. So Flipkart FIPL buys in bulk and gives it to these sellers, and again the same methodology is adopted through which the products reach the end user. Can you just go to the next slide? So what happens is the prevalence of this network of preferred or controlled sellers has practically driven away the small sellers from the marketplace. So if you go on any of these sites, you will rarely find any small seller selling in this marketplace. You will only see these controlled sellers, and they know the buying patterns very well because they have that business experience. So they know which items to sell. So on the marketplace or the online marketplace, these are the items which sell the most. Electronics accounts for the most of the sales, which is 47%, followed by apparel, which is 31%, and the home segment is there. Okay, after that, this is order. So they know this. So this is all the popular categories are dominated by these big companies. So that is how it operates. Micro marketplaces, therefore, we can conclude, have become de facto inventory-based e-commerce entities. And all these e-commerce companies, they have created, now tax avoidance is a major thing. So one section of the e-commerce, their policy level behavior is violation of FDI rules. The another silo of their policy behavior is tax avoidance. So these are the two important silos through which they operate. So now I'll spend some time detailing to you how they have created overseas structures for tax avoidance. Now in my book I call Flipkart's formula of business M3, which is minuscule investment, maximum turnover and minimum tax. Because you'll be surprised to know that when Flipkart started its business, the co-promoters, the Bansals, they are not related, Vinny Bansal and Sachin Bansal. They started with a capital of less than, in fact, they started with a capital of 90 point some thousand lakhs, 90.57 lakhs. So below a crore. That's how they started this company. And what they did is, what they paying taxes. What they did, they set up their holding company in Singapore, which is Flipkart India, Flipkart Private Limited. And Flipkart Private Limited in turn is owned by US hedge funds. So some of the hedge funds are Tiger Global, SL Partners, Naspers. And then this holding company, it has registered 100% subsidiaries in Singapore. Many subsidiaries are there which are there with, if you are interested, you can read the book, and you will find out the details there of all the companies which are there. So it set up 100% subsidiaries in Singapore. Flipkart Logistics Limited, Flipkart Marketplace Private Limited. All these companies, 100% companies, it's set up in Singapore, and through them they hold stakes in Indian companies. Now WS Retail Service Private Limited, this is the most interesting piece of the entire Flipkart puzzle. Flipkart has around 19 companies, 19 entities listed in India. So this whole puzzle is actually a puzzle. WS Retail is very interesting and very important because it was set up with a capital of, like I told you, 90.50 lakhs. Now if you look at its behavior, balance sheet behavior, in FY financial year 16, the turnover was 13,000, whole year breadth, 13,921 crore. This was the revenue turnover. What was the profit it paid? The profit it showed, rupees 8.54 crore. And what is the tax it paid? 1.89 crore. So minuscule percent of the revenue turnover went as tax. If you take it in percent terms, it is 0.42% of tax of the total turnover it paid. Now if you look at FY17, because it had some problems also, so the turnover went down. It was 4,620 crore, and then it showed a loss of 1549 crore, and tax was 3.33 crore. 19 entities are held by Flipkart. Total turnover of all these 19 companies together is 33,630 crore. It